Wow. Okay. Hey there, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Nick Stamore, and I have a confession to make. And I think it's kind of obvious given what's behind me and the fact I have an entire bar dedicated to it that I decorate seasonally. I love coffee. I love it so much, I've been drinking it since I was 5 years old. Believe it or not, that was what a doctor prescribed since I had asthma. But in any case, I pretty much drink it every single morning, and I have since I was 5. I'm 34, do the math. That's a lot of coffee over the years. So, needless to say, when Goth Rider reached out to me for a collaboration, I didn't even think twice. One, it's pretty much a coffee company that if I wanted to make coffee, it's the exact aesthetic I would go for. One, I love motorcycles and anything kind of grungy like that. Two, obviously, gothic, dark, macabre, edgy, that entire aesthetic. Again, something I completely adore, right? Combine the two, and there you got. So, love that. And two, it comes in a lot of different ways. So, versatility. I can't say no to that. I was really pleased when they reached out to me. So not only am I going to show you some things, I'm also going to do a bit of a taste test in several different ways. So, what we're going to do? Of course, show you the products, show you the goods, and that's what you're here for. Two, going to try the coffee a couple different ways via a French press and a drip coffee machine. I would do a pour over, but I don't have one of those. Three, test it in some alcohol, because coffee and alcohol, it's kind of like one of my go-to things, especially in the evenings. So we're going to do that a la an Irish coffee. And four, because it's me and I absolutely adore baking and cooking, we're going to bake with it. So we're going to make some cookies, right? So some alcoholic coffee drink, some coffee themed cookies. I think it's going to be a good day. So without further ado, let's get to it. So Goth Rider has a couple of different selections of coffee and in different ways. They have it ground, they have it whole bean, they also have K-cups. So what they sent me were whole bean, and they sent me these two blends. We have Goth Rider Gasoline and Goth Rider Grease. Important thing to note about their coffees, and it's probably the most important for me when drinking something like this early morning, is that it has 3 times the normal level of caffeine as a regular cup of coffee, which is something I sincerely appreciate because I am a bear in the morning. Don't talk to me, don't do anything, don't ask me questions before I've had my cup of coffee. My coworkers know this. But one thing I do appreciate is that on the Goth Rider website is that if you scroll down closer to the bottom of the page, they have a grid where they explain not only what different sort of coffees they have, but their acidity levels, the roasts. So you have a general idea of what it's going to taste like before you actually receive it. For example, I am not the biggest fan of high acidity coffees. I prefer something really smooth and palatable early in the morning, and then I'll do my more high acidity ones later in the day. So first off, let's go over the gasoline blend. It is a low acidity coffee, medium roast. For those of you who are curious about the origin of the coffee itself, it's from Rwanda. So that is an African blend. So normally that's a rather smoother blend from what I found versus a lot of other countries of origin from coffees I've had before. Normally some fruity notes, very nice and light and bright is generally how it is. So we'll see how that turns out for the gasoline blend. As for the Grease blend, it is the next level up in acidity. So Grease blend is a medium acidity level. So normally I would probably start them with gasoline in the morning and then do Grease later on in the day is probably what I would end up doing, but to each their own. It is a dark roast, as well as country of origin is also Rwanda. So same thing as with gasoline. As for packaging itself, I love the aesthetic of it. I adore skeletons, skulls, crows, anything of that style. So not only do we have a lovely skeleton with an older style motorcycle helmet on, including all the goggles too for, well, if you're out on the highway and you've ridden a motorcycle before, you need those. So, I like that. I also like the little addition of the little gasoline handles up here too. It's like, gets the point across really, really well. And of course, The aesthetic of the colors, black, gray, white, red. Totally my ideal. Same thing over here with the grease blend. Notice that the design of this has changed ever so slightly. So now it is motorcycle handles. And this guy looks like a little kind of like 1950s greaser. I literally was thinking of the movie Grease when I saw this. So, and that was actually one of my favorite movies as a kid. Go Grease Lightning. Again, color of the aesthetic here of the black, the white, the gray, the everything. And also slightly oranger tint, which honestly gives me some autumn vibes. And everyone knows, at least you've been with me for a while, autumn's my favorite season. Go figure. So, that's it for the actual designs of the coffee themselves. I also ended up with this lovely coffee mug. Please excuse the glare from my kitchen window. But this isn't the only coffee mug they have on their website. They also have a couple of bundles, including one that has a black skull coffee mug. I'll actually be probably picking that up because that one comes with K-cups as well that I can take for work. I don't have a Keurig here, but instead I have that for my quick coffee on the go at work. So they have some of those bundles. There's another one that I want to get as well. That is the Gasoline Coffee Zodiac Astro Kit. That has a coffee mug that actually has your astrology sign on it, done in, of course, the Goth Rider fashion of skulls and macabre and, well, you get the shtick, right? So that, as well as Gasoline Coffee, and a t-shirt also done in Goth Rider fashion with your astrology sign as well. So those are the two bundles that I plan on looking at for the future. And also for some other swag, they also sent me some stickers. So we have one representing the Greaser coffee and one that represents the Gasoline coffee. And those will be going somewhere on something that I'm going to be using in the future, more than likely in my daily planner. I will leave links to the bundles below, as well as all these coffees and everything below. But without further ado, let's get started on trying out this coffee. Open this up. I will admit, when I first got this box that had everything in it, I opened up the box and I just got like a nice woof of coffee smell, which is my favorite smell overall. And there it is. Yep. Love that smell in the morning. I'm actually one of those people that if you just put a cup of coffee right next to my bedstand or on my bedstand while I'm sleeping, the smell of it will wake me up. Ooh. That smells delightful. Also, you could just put coffee beans out and around and just aromatic your house. So, let's get this ground and let's get to making. Still letting the one with the French press steep. Needs to steep for about 3-4 minutes for me. But the drip coffee is done, so let's give that one a try. Alright, so. Definitely a smoother smell than I normally get from normal black coffees. I will admit, I normally do have a little bit of cream, maybe a dollop of cream in my coffee. I do black on occasion. So this is, but I'm gonna do this as actually a straight, without additives, no sugar, no nothing, just to see how this is. And hopefully not burn the bejesus out of my tongue. Okay. Wow, okay. Normally I can't do straight black coffee from drip. I just can't. It's always just too, there's just something extremely off about it. But this is actually one of the first drip coffees I've had where it's utterly like smooth, very, very smooth. Normally I can only do that with a French press. This doesn't need cream. And I almost never say that anymore. Wow, okay. Definitely very low acidity, which is probably the reason why I can drink it straight black. It's just a hint of bitter. This is like early Saturday, Sunday morning, dead of winter. I can barely wake up, shamble in like a zombie, start my coffee, and huddle around this on a couch wrapped in a blanket. That would be for me. I'm gonna let that cool for a little bit, because honestly, I realize I'm gonna be drinking 3 cups worth of coffee today, and if that being 3 times out of caffeine, I am going to be launching to the moon if I'm not careful. And I need to sleep tonight, so this is gonna be fun. It's been about 3 minutes, so I'm going to plunge this down ever so slowly so it doesn't spurt on me and everywhere. And I don't have the black skull mug, but I do have a white skull mug that one of my troop mates gifted me. Same thing, no cream, no sugar, no nothing, just the gasoline coffee. There's only a hint of a difference in the flavor profile from doing drip versus French press. French press is smoother, which I expected it to be, but drip is still really smooth. So if you only have a drip machine and you're looking for like a smooth blend, gasoline would be good. French press, you have a lot more options, but I mean, again, I don't need to add cream, and I haven't been able to say that in I don't know how long for a coffee. God, I wish I had you in college. Would have made my life so much easier. Drip coffee, French coffee, smooth, excellent taste. So I'm very curious of how this is going to taste now with in my Irish coffee. So my Irish coffee recipe that I use is actually from another YouTuber, Anders Ericsson. He is a bartender YouTuber based out of Chicago. So I'm going to use his recipe. I will link that down below. Please note, I am not a bartender, so please don't diss on my mixing skills. I'm still trying to get more into my mixology here. So please don't like diss on that. I'm doing my best here. I know I don't have proper style or anything else like that, but I'm gonna make that up and we will go from there. All right, so for this drink, I'm gonna be making it right into a clear coffee mug so you guys can actually see the layers and pretty and everything else. But I will be brewing the coffee right into this via drip, since that's going to be faster for me. The Irish whiskey that I'm using for this is Proper 12 Irish whiskey. So far, I really like it. It's been really smooth every single time I've made this drink. I'm going to be using a brown sugar syrup. This recipe normally calls for Demerara sugar syrup. This is a 2-to-1, so 2 parts brown sugar to 1 part water. Just put it over everything over a stove. The water has to be hot first. Stir it together, mix it in, take it off the stove after everything's been dissolved. Pour it into a container of some sort, and then it'll last for quite a while in the refrigerator. Of course, shaker tin, I'll be putting my whipped cream in this, or I should say my whipping cream in this, and I will be shaking it to consistency. Jigger, and a stirring spoon. Mostly just to kind of hopefully try to lay all of the cream on top. So, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so it mixed by itself by accident. Normally a lot better at that, but then again, normally I shake the cream for a lot longer than what I just did. But, oops, it'll still taste the same, I swear to you. So, I also doubled the recipe since Anders on his channel, he uses a much smaller glass. So I doubled everything since I'm getting 8 ounces of coffee. His had 3.5 ounces of coffee. So let's see how this tastes. Ooh, really smooth. Okay. Actually, you could punch up the whiskey for this. So I would actually even add more whiskey in there because the coffee is so smooth. Everything just blends really nicely. Yeah, you don't get like the alcohol burn with using this blend. Because normally when I do this drink, I will at least get like a really good burn from whiskey. But it's so smooth. I can't get over how smooth this is. To be fair, I did use the gasoline coffee. So again, low acidity and everything else. Wow, okay. Yeah, I think if I really wanted to burn like the nice whiskey like burn, I would probably do 3 ounces, or maybe even 3 or 4 ounces of Irish whiskey for a mug like this. But it is really smooth, really tasty. Honestly, the perfect after dinner drink. So I actually might be making another one of these after we do our cookies, which will be the next thing on our list. What you'll need for this recipe is 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1/3 cup of finely ground coffee beans. I use the gasoline blend, 1 teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of kosher salt. I have already mixed the two. 1 cup of unsalted butter at room temperature. This is salted, but I found that a little bit of salt in the butter doesn't change too much when it comes to baking cookies, at least in my experience. I also prefer Kerrygold. I found it to be the best butter so far, at least that I can find in America. 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1/2 cup of packed light brown sugar, 2 large eggs at room temperature, 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. I actually added an extra 1/2 teaspoon since most vanilla extracts on the market are not very high quality. So just to give that extra oomph, I always add at least a little bit more than a recipe states. 2 cups of milk chocolate chips. These are dark chocolate because 1, I prefer dark chocolate, and 2, I think it would pair very well with the coffee grounds and the coffee flavors that we're going to put into these. Now, before we get started, I just want to say that this is not my recipe. I am not the one who came up with this. This recipe is actually from their website, Hola Jalapeno, and the author of it is Kate Ramos. So I will leave the link to the original recipe and everything down below. I will also write down what modifications I did and share those as well. So without further ado, let's get baking. Take your flour, add your coffee, add the salt and the baking soda. Whisk together until they are finely mixed. In the bowl of a stand mixer, we're going to add the butter, the granulated sugar, and the light brown sugar. We're going to mix this on high for about 3 minutes until it is light and fluffy. We're going to want to scrape down the sides of the bowl. Now we need to add our eggs and our vanilla extract. Whip this one together on slow at first. And then slowly increase the speed. Had to move you since the next part is adding flour. So this is the only way I'm hoping to not end up wearing anything white. Put this lovely little cover here so I can just put the flour right in as it's going. Now the best way to do this is to actually put the flour in parchment paper, or let's just say the flour mixture in parchment paper. I have wax paper because I'm out of parchment paper. And I did about half of it. Fold the parchment or wax paper into a little V shape to slide all of the flour in so you can actually control the speed so you aren't dusted. I'm gonna fully scrape down everything and really mix to incorporate everything as best as possible before we add the chocolate chips. For this, I'm switching to a wooden spoon just to make my life easier. Now that our dough is fully mixed together, all we need to do is put them onto some baking sheets. If you're wearing rings, take them off. I already have for mine because we're gonna get a little messy. Also put down parchment paper on the baking sheets for some easier cleanup. I am lucky enough to have some silicone pads instead, which make my life so much easier. So we're gonna bake these for about 13 minutes. That's the timer that I at least started. It should take anywhere between 12 to 15 depending on your oven. So I'm not too sure how these are going to bake. Right now I'm hoping they don't spread out. But I'm also curious, if it doesn't have the taste that I want, I might do a coffee glaze over the top of it. So if so, I will experiment with that first and then explain how I do it. The second batch is currently in the oven right now. So while those are baking, these have been cooling. So I'm gonna try one of the smaller cookies and see how they taste and see if I need to do that glaze or not. I still might do it just because I want to. Okay, we'll definitely be adding the glaze because these are good. Trust me, these are good. They just seem like a very elevated chocolate chip cookie instead of a coffee chocolate chip cookie. So I'm gonna whip up that glaze and then have that ready to go whenever everything is completely cooled. The cookies have fully cooled at this point. Now I'm gonna make the glaze. So this is going to be a mix of 1 cup of powdered sugar and 2 tablespoons of coffee. Now the coffee, again, I used the gasoline blend, but I did a much smaller amount in a French press. I only used 1 scoop for the grounds, but I also cut the amount of water in half. So it's a very, very condensed version of this, and I let it steep for a little longer than normal. So I'm gonna start by adding a little bit of coffee at a time. I'm gonna do actually 4, 5, 6. This is a half teaspoon, can't find my regular teaspoon. 3 teaspoons equal a tablespoon. So start by mixing that. And we're just going to actually just add a little bit at a time until this fully incorporates. See how it does not take much at all? Okay. Now we just wait for the glaze to dry and then they're good. So the glaze hasn't fully set, but it's mostly set. And I did try the glaze by itself, and I am wondering if what happened is actually going to affect the flavor here or not. Because even though I added 2 tablespoons full of the coffee, it didn't really change the flavor of the glaze. And I'm wondering if the low acidity of the coffee, while good for drinking, means that as soon as you add anything else to it, it nullifies the flavor. This is one of those coffees where it is perfect, just straight black. And also, I did get the aftertaste of the coffee while eating the cookie. So I'm wondering, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna again try a small, I wanna try a small one because I wanna savor the big ones for later. So I'm wondering if it had the same effect and it nullified it. Although the added sweetness of the glaze does bring out the flavor of the coffee more because you can definitely tell the bitter notes. Slightly bitter notes of the coffee in comparison to everything else. So my suggestion would be to, if you want to bake with any of the Goth Rider blends, I would recommend baking with grease. So, not grease, you know what I mean, but the coffee blend grease. I would recommend baking with that. Put the put the ground coffee in the recipe. And if you want to do this coffee glaze that I kind of whipped up, use, do like a very small brew of grease, concentrate if you want to, in a French press. And if you really want an extra punch, I would even add some actual regular coffee grounds too into the glaze after you've added everything in. Just like a teaspoon or a teaspoon, yeah, a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons depending. Like, it'll have like a slight gritty texture, and you'll have black specks in the glaze, but you'll really get that punch of coffee. All in all though, you're like a cookie. Okay, so by this point, I drank the coffee, I've done a mixed drink with the coffee, I've baked with the coffee, and all in all, I love it. I really do. It is truly a smooth blend of coffee, really versatile. I know that the higher acidity count, that grease will have that extra bite that you're probably looking for, but my go-to is probably going to be gasoline, especially when I'm like on the go, which is kind of the point. On the go, on my way to the gym in the mornings, I'll have this one preset to go, so I can just grab it and head out the door. And I gotta admit, I did give 1 cup of the coffee away to my husband because he desperately needed it today. I've been sipping off of a couple different cups of this already today. And it is 11:30 at night by the time I'm wrapping this up. And I am not tired at all, which is not good for me. So that 3 times the caffeine, it really is true. But this will definitely help in the mornings. So thank you so much to Goth Rider for sending this stuff to me and for reaching out. I will leave the link to everything that I end up with down below. And for those of you wondering, yes, I'll be buying more with my own money in the future because I really, really love this. And I can't wait to try all the other blends that they have, because they do have a couple other seasonal ones too. So with that, thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, leave a like and a comment. Let me know what you would do with something like this, with coffee and everything else besides just drink it. Do you have any recipes you put it in? Because that's kind of like my go-to. What would you do? Because honestly, I'd like to add some of the ground coffee and sear steaks with it. I think that'd be a really nice, give it a good coffee crust. With that, I'll see you next time, and remember to go after whatever your dark heart desires. Cheers.